The United States government institutionalizes its authority to block the release of frontier AI models. China bypasses American technology embargoes to reclaim the title of the world's fastest supercomputer. And Sam Altman delays OpenAI's initial public offering after rejecting any valuation under $1 trillion. Welcome to this week's Rundown. I am your host, Anna. This podcast is researched and produced by Etienne Noman, senior software engineer from Université Laval, based in Calgary, Alberta. Today, we perform a forensic autopsy on the Sovereignty Veto and the Geopolitical Tech Rift for the week ending June 28, 2026. The artificial intelligence frontier is no longer governed by Silicon Valley. It is strictly gated by Washington. The Trump administration has officially blocked the public release of OpenAI's new GPT-5.6 series, forcing the company into a restricted preview model vetted on a customer-by-customer basis. Simultaneously, the Commerce Department partially lifted its ban on Anthropic, allowing the Mythos 5 model to be used exclusively by a small cohort of approved cyber defenders, while keeping the consumer-facing Fable 5 strictly offline. As American software deployment freezes under sovereign oversight, the global infrastructure war is accelerating. China has successfully bypassed U.S. chip embargoes, utilizing a custom architecture to build the LineShine machine, reclaiming the crown for the world's fastest supercomputer. This technological rift is bleeding into global trade, with the U.S. threatening a 100% tariff against European nations levying digital taxes, while Beijing actively bans American defense contractors in retaliation. Before we break down the telemetry of these state-level interventions, I have a brief strategic request. The algorithms governing your podcast platform dictate what intelligence reaches your feed. To ensure you never miss our weekly forensic autopsies, please hit follow or subscribe to the DJAMGAMIND channel on Apple Podcasts to always listen completely ads-free. It takes just 1 second, but it directly enables independent tech journalism. Let's unpack the data.
Imagine. You are Apple. You are arguably one of the most powerful corporate entities in human history.
Right.
But this week, you had to quietly approach the U.S. government and essentially beg for permission to buy memory chips from a blacklisted Chinese military supplier.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah, just so you could keep the price of an iPad from, spiraling completely out of control. Welcome to the Deep Dive. If you're tracking global capital and technology, you know the landscape just shifted beneath our feet.
It really did.
We are unpacking the week of June 21st to June 28th, 2026. And our overarching mission today is mapping what we're calling the Sovereignty Veto and the Geopolitical Tech Rift.
Yeah, we are looking at the absolute balkanization of the global tech stack here. I mean, the era of the open, frictionless internet where code and components just flowed freely across borders, that is effectively over.
Completely over.
We're entering a phase where the digital world is being carved up by sovereign borders and massive capital walls.
Exactly. And to understand how this is rewriting the rules of global trade, we really have to start at the foundational layer, which is software.
Right.
Right now, the frontier of artificial intelligence is being aggressively frozen by state intervention. We are seeing a fundamental reclassification of what AI actually is.
And that reclassification is the core mechanism driving everything else. I mean, look at the joint intelligence briefing issued this week by the Five Eyes.
The Intelligence Alliance, right.
Yeah.
U.S., U.K., Australia, New Zealand, and Canada.
Exactly. And they didn't just issue some vague advisory. They put out a clinical, stark warning that frontier AI models capable of systematically toppling governments and corporate infrastructure are literally, quote, months away.
Months away, wow.
Yeah, they're tracking a massive acceleration in the speed and sophistication of cyber threats that can operate autonomously.
And the legislative response to that intelligence is severe. Like, we are looking at the proposed AI Incident Reporting Act.
Which is...
Right, this isn't just a slap on the wrist. It creates a federal oversight system where developers of advanced covered models face civil penalties of up to $2 million per day.
Per day. That's insane.
Yeah, per day, if they don't report major safety incidents within 7 days. And if there is an imminent threat, say an AI model demonstrates it can evade human oversight, resist being shut down, or, enable the creation of chemical weapons, the Commerce Department is legally required to alert congressional leaders within 48 hours.
So that is the regulatory architecture being built. But the actual sovereignty veto that's already being executed in real time, Look at what's happened with OpenAI.
Oh, yeah, the GPT-5.6 series.
Right, the White House actively intervened to limit the public release of that whole series.
Right, so the flagship model in that series is Sol, which boasts maximum reasoning capabilities at $5 per million input tokens. And that's flanked by the cheaper Terra and Luna models.
Yeah, but instead of a global rollout, OpenAI was forced to put them into a highly restricted preview, strictly for vetted partners.
Which is controversial. Former White House AI policy advisor Dean W. Ball heavily criticized this entire dynamic. He argued that allowing only the most powerful state-vetted actors to use inscrutable technology is, well, fundamentally incompatible with a democratic republic.
Because it creates an elite class of tech users.
Exactly.
It's a profound shift. And you see the exact same mechanism applied to Anthropic this week, too. The Commerce Department partially lifted a ban on Anthropic's Mythos 5 model.
But they didn't release it to the public, did they?
No, not at all. They're only allowing it to be sold to a highly curated list of about 100 vetted cyber defenders, which are almost entirely Fortune 500 defense and infrastructure firms. Meanwhile, the consumer version of that model, Fable 5, remains completely offline.
Okay, let's unpack this because I have to push back on the official narrative here. The government is calling these temporary safety pauses or security reviews.
Right, safety.
Yeah, but if you are unbanning a highly capable AI model exclusively for Fortune 500 defense contractors, that doesn't sound like a safety review.
No, it doesn't.
That sounds like hoarding. Like, are these governments essentially treating frontier AI like enriched uranium? Are they acting as neutral referees, or are they quietly becoming the lead players stockpiling the smartest weapons for themselves?
What's fascinating here is that that is exactly the right framework. They're militarizing it. Sovereign states are no longer looking at frontier AI as a commercial software-as-a-service product. They view it as a dual-use digital munition.
A digital munition.
Yeah. And if you are an investor, this completely alters your venture capital strategy. Your exit strategy isn't just achieving product-market fit or a massive consumer launch anymore. It is navigating national security clearances.
Which perfectly explains OpenAI's new Patch the Planet initiative.
Precisely. OpenAI just partnered with this cybersecurity firm, Trail of Bits. They're using AI and their codex security systems to systematically hunt down and fix critical flaws in open-source software languages like Python and Go.
And they have bug bounty platforms like HackerOne and Caliph supporting the triage.
Right. And this isn't just some corporate social responsibility project. This is AI operating as defensive state infrastructure. They are reinforcing the digital walls of the nation.
But here's the geopolitical reality. If the software frontier is completely locked down by sovereign vetoes, the battleground doesn't just disappear. It simply shifts.
It shifts to the physical layer.
Exactly. It shifts entirely to the physical hardware that powers that software. Which brings us to the Silicon Cold War.
And this is where the engineering gets deeply fascinating because we are seeing state actors engineer their way right around economic sanctions.
Look at China. They just reclaimed the title of the world's fastest supercomputer from the US-based El Capitan.
LineShine.
Right. Yeah, the new machine is called LineShine, and it clocked in at 2.198 exaflops. To put that in perspective, that's over 2 quintillion calculations a second.
Which is mind-bending.
But the truly clinical detail here isn't the speed, it's the architecture. They completely bypassed US technology embargoes because LineShine uses 0 GPUs.
0. Which is astounding when you consider that modern AI relies almost entirely on the parallel processing power of graphics processing units.
Right.
So how did they do it?
Right.
Well, instead of relying on restricted American GPUs, the Chinese National Supercomputer Center essentially hot-wired a custom 304-core processor.
Wow.
They scaled this out to 13.79 million cores running at 1.55 gigahertz. They basically proved that if you can't buy the bleeding-edge American sports car, you can still win the race by networking 1,000 golf carts together in perfect synchronization.
And it draws 42.2 megawatts for an efficiency of 52.07 gigaflops per watt. And they hid exactly who manufactured the CPUs, and it was built without public funding just to obscure the supply chain.
It proves the point. Embargoes only delay development. They force adversaries to innovate entirely parallel systems, and this hardware balkanization is triggering a brutal tit-for-tat escalation right now.
Yeah, the retaliation is immediate. Because the Pentagon updated its 1260H military blacklist, which, restricts U.S. entities from dealing with companies tied to the Chinese military. China just dropped sanctions on 46 U.S. firms.
Massive firms, too.
We are talking about blocking government procurement for huge defense contractors like Oshkosh Defense and Ball Aerospace, drone makers like Teal Drones. And most critically, they placed export controls on rare earth miners like MP Materials and USA Rare Earth.
So they are actively choking off the raw materials needed to build the hardware in the first place.
Exactly.
And the corporate crossfire here is getting incredibly messy. Alibaba is currently suing the U.S. Department of Defense to get themselves taken off that 1260H blacklist.
But at the exact same time, Anthropic is suing Alibaba.
Yes, accusing them of carrying out the largest ever AI distillation intellectual property theft.
Distillation. Can you explain that for the listeners?
Yeah, so this is a crucial concept. For those tracking the technical side, distillation isn't traditional hacking. Alibaba didn't break into a server and steal source code. Anthropic claims Alibaba essentially used a swarm of 25,000 fake accounts to constantly interrogate Anthropic's AI, generating 28.8 million targeted interactions.
So they just asked it millions of questions.
Exactly. They tricked the AI into spitting out its underlying logic and reasoning patterns so Alibaba could map its brain and copy it without paying for the research and development.
It is a chaotic web of state and corporate warfare, and it is severely squeezing the companies making the devices you actually use every day.
Absolutely.
Which brings us back to that Apple paradox we mentioned at the very start of the deep dive. Here's where it gets really interesting. Apple just had to hike MacBook and iPad prices, which instantly caused their stock to drop 5%.
Because component costs are surging.
Yeah, the fractured supply chain. So Apple is actively lobbying the Trump administration to grant them an exemption to buy memory chips from CXMP Chang'an Memory Technologies.
Now, just to be clear for you listening, we're looking at this strictly through the lens of market impact and capital flow based on our sources.
Right, absolutely. We want to state explicitly that we are impartially reporting the source material here. We aren't endorsing any viewpoints or taking political sides regarding the Trump administration or any political figures.
Exactly. But the market reality is stark. The context here is that CXMT was designated a Chinese military company by the Defense Department under the previous Biden-era Pentagon, and they were added to the entity list. Again, just reporting the facts of the policy.
Right. So you have an American titan, Apple, pleading with the current administration to let them funnel cash to a blacklisted Chinese company just to maintain their domestic profit margins.
It really highlights the tension.
So if hardware costs are permanently inflating because of the supply chain balkanization, who actually has the cash to buy the chips and build the infrastructure?
Good question.
That brings us to the next massive shift, capitalizing the Colossus grid. To survive this environment, tech giants are executing staggering, sovereign-level capital expenditures. We are talking about nation-state levels of money.
Because you can no longer compete in a garage. The capital intensity of the tech industry is permanently altered. Just look at SpaceX.
Oh, the reflection AI deal.
Yeah. They just signed a $6.3 billion deal to lease computing power to an AI startup called Reflection AI.
Right. Reflection is paying $150 million a month just to access NVIDIA GB300 chips inside Elon Musk's Colossus infrastructure.
$150 million a month.
And I want to pause on this because there is a massive irony here. Reflection AI calls itself an open source lab. But if open source AI requires a startup to pay $150 million a month to lease proprietary, sovereign-scale hardware from a private space company just to exist, is open source actually just an illusion?
It is a brilliant question. If the barrier to entry is billions of dollars in specialized hardware, the code being free is practically irrelevant.
Yeah.
SpaceX is proving that their Colossus grid is becoming a sovereign enterprise rental engine. They are positioning themselves as the foundational utility provider for the intelligence age. And it's not just private companies making these bets.
Samsung, right.
Yeah, Samsung is expected to announce a mind-blowing 1,000 trillion won investment package in South Korea.
That is $647.5 billion over 10 years. I mean, 300 trillion won is dedicated just to building chip factories in the country's southwest, with the rest targeting AI data centers and batteries.
And SK Hynix is also unveiling massive infrastructure plans there.
But building the chips and the data centers is only half the equation. You have to power them. And the current electrical grid cannot handle the megawatt draw of these new AI facilities.
Not even close.
To solve that power problem, Tesla, Sunrun, and Renew Home are partnering to build a massive 16-gigawatt virtual power plant in the U.S.
So what does that actually look like in practice?
Well, instead of waiting a decade to build a new nuclear reactor or a coal plant, they are digitally networking millions of home batteries, smart thermostats, and electric vehicle charging systems. They are scraping together unused energy from suburban homes to feed these massive AI data centers. At the same time, The silicon itself has to become more efficient. IBM just unveiled the world's first sub-1 nanometer chip featuring a 0.7 nanometer nanostack architecture.
And why does that threshold matter?
Because operating at the atomic level delivers 50% better performance or 70% greater energy efficiency, which is desperately needed to offset that power draw. Plus, OpenAI just revealed Jalapeno, its very first custom ASIC intelligence processor built with Broadcom, designed strictly for AI inference.
You know, the best analogy for this is the 1920s electrical grid.
How so?
Well, a century ago, if you wanted to run a massive factory, you couldn't just plug it into the wall. The public utility just wasn't strong enough. You had to build your own massive power plant next door just to run your assembly lines.
Right.
Today, AI companies are realizing the public infrastructure can't support them, so private corporations like SpaceX, Tesla, and Samsung are footing the bill to build the foundational infrastructure of the 21st century.
But that insatiable need for capital is violently colliding with public markets and geopolitical trade walls. We are watching a trillion-dollar standoff.
Yeah, the IPO freeze.
Sam Altman is leaning toward delaying OpenAI's IPO until 2027. Why? Because he is insisting on a $1 trillion valuation.
$1 trillion.
Yeah. Their last private valuation was $730 billion, but he reportedly told advisors that going public for anything less than $1 trillion is a non-starter.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that delay had immediate, brutal market ripple effects. SoftBank's stock crashed 13%, its steepest drop since 2024.
Because SoftBank has massive exposure here. Their stake in OpenAI was modeled to hit about $65 billion by October.
Exactly. And this IPO freeze is happening while tech markets are incredibly volatile.
Right.
Largely because the talent war is just draining resources.
It's a total exodus. Google researchers Jonas Adler and Alexander Pritzel, who were instrumental in building Gemini, are leaving for Anthropic.
A massive loss for Google.
Huge. And this follows Noam Shazir leaving for OpenAI and DeepMind director John Jumper also defecting to Anthropic. The lure isn't just salary, it's pre-IPO equity.
But all of this is playing out against a backdrop of intense geopolitical market subversion. President Trump just threatened a 100% tariff on goods from any country that charges a digital services tax on American tech monopolies like Meta, Amazon, and Alphabet.
He stated this would supersede any existing trade deals.
Mm-hmm.
And again, to you listening, we are explicitly acting impartially here. We are just reporting on the policy documents and strictly analyzing the economic fallout.
Exactly. And the impact of that policy is massive. These digital service taxes are highly prevalent in Europe. This threat weaponizes global physical trade over digital market dominance. You tax our software, we tax your physical goods at 100%.
That's a heavy play.
And at the same time, we see corporate subversion happening internally. Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella is openly weighing whether to host China's ultra-low-cost DeepSeek model on Azure.
Think about the mechanics of that. Microsoft would funnel massive enterprise traffic to a Chinese state-adjacent asset, specifically to undercut the pricing power of their American partners, OpenAI and Anthropic.
It's ruthless.
And to add a layer of national security to this market volatility, President Trump just signed 2 executive orders focused on quantum computing.
Right.
One pushes for a quantum computer strong enough for scientific research and to bolster domestic supply chains. The second mandates a migration to post-quantum cryptography by 2031 to protect infrastructure against algorithms that could break current online encryption.
And again, neutral reporting here.
Yeah.
Purely analyzing the timeline and policy impact.
Always.
What all of this points to, the $1 trillion valuations, the tariffs, the quantum mandates, is one core reality. Capital is being weaponized.
Yeah.
Valuations like OpenAI's are no longer just multiples of projected revenue. They are war chests. You need $1 trillion just to maintain a balance sheet massive enough to survive global balkanization and secure post-quantum sovereign-grade hardware.
So what does this all mean? Like, how did these multi-billion-dollar geopolitical rifts actually reach you, the consumer?
That's the consumerist internet.
Exactly, because the apps and gadgets we use daily are morphing to survive this new reality. Apple is reportedly delaying its most powerful Macs until 2027.
Skipping the M-cells entirely.
Right. They are completely skipping the M6 Pro and Max chips to launch an M7 chip that is focused purely on on-device AI processing. The high-end M7 Ultra won't even arrive until 2028.
They are abandoning standard iterative performance bumps. They have to re-architect their entire hardware lineup for a decentralized AI world where processing happens on the hardware you hold in your hand, not in a vulnerable cloud.
And on the software side, the tools aren't just features anymore, they are autonomous agents. Anthropic just launched Claude Tag, placing Claude directly inside Slack channels as a permanent team member.
Right, it works on its own schedule. Administrators set an agent identity and a token spending ceiling, and Claude acts without being explicitly tagged.
And crucially, because it uses its own localized accounts, it prevents the AI from becoming a backdoor for corporate espionage into private documents.
The ecosystem is expanding everywhere to protect verified data. Getty Images stock just soared 120% on a massive deal to display its licensed photo libraries inside OpenAI's ChatGPT search.
They are skipping synthetic AI images entirely in favor of verified, cryptographically secure photos.
Meanwhile, Meta is aggressively expanding into adjacent markets to lock users into their walled garden.
Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg has a team building a smartphone app called Arena. It is a prediction market platform, but it uses a video game-style point system to entirely bypass the Commodity Futures Trading Commissions.
All right.
By not using direct fiat currency wagers in the app, they dodged the regulators. Just the news of Meta entering this space sent stocks for DraftKings, Flutter Entertainment, and Robinhood falling.
Meta is leveraging its 3 billion users to crush standalone apps. They are also rebranding their smart glasses to simply Meta glasses, dropping the Ray-Ban name. They are launching $299 models called the Fury and Adventurer, plus a Starfire Kylie Jenner edition that comes with a vanity mirror charging case. They are literally integrating AI directly onto the user's face.
And they just poured $900 million into the Indian fintech startup Cred, bringing its founder, Kunal Shah, all the way to Menlo Park to take over as the new head of WhatsApp, replacing Will Cathcart.
Shah's entire mandate is to add AI agents, advertising, and subscription services to the platform.
It is the race to build the ultimate walled garden super app. In a fractured internet, whoever controls the super app controls the consumer's reality.
Which is exactly what TikTok is doing. They launched TikTok Go in the US to let users book hotels and experiences natively, directly challenging Google search and maps.
And in Brazil, they've applied for central bank licenses to offer prepaid accounts and act as a direct credit provider.
On the flip side, Instagram is rolling out a TV app for Samsung devices with episodic series and live TV, moving from the phone to fight Netflix in the living room.
And tying all of these consumer services together is the physical connectivity layer. SpaceX quietly flew its new Starfall return capsule, a 4,600-pound uncrewed disk that splashed down in the Pacific Ocean.
But more importantly for the average user, SpaceX is planning a Starlink-branded mobile phone service.
Right.
They bought 65 megahertz of wireless spectrum from EchoStar, and they are preparing to directly challenge legacy telecom giants like AT&T and Verizon.
So looking at all of this, the super apps, the proprietary hardware, the sovereign networks, how should you navigate a digital life that is fragmenting into isolated hardware walled gardens?
The blunt reality is that the open, borderless internet you grew up with is dead. We are officially entering an era of sovereign tech stacks. Going forward, your digital capabilities, your cybersecurity, and your access to information will be entirely dictated by the hardware pipelines you can afford and the state alliances of the platform you happen to be standing on.
To recap our autopsy today, AI is no longer a commercial software product. It is a highly regulated, dual-use state secret. Compute and physical infrastructure are the new geopolitical oil, requiring hundreds of billions in capital.
Yeah.
And as a result, the consumer internet is fracturing into heavily defended, sovereign-aligned super apps.
The balkanization is complete, from the silicon up to the screen.
Which brings us back to that final puzzle to mull over. We mentioned Reflection AI paying Elon Musk $150 million a month. If open source AI requires billions of dollars of proprietary sovereign-scale hardware just to run, is open source actually a lie?
In a balkanized tech world, the code doesn't matter as much.
Right. Whoever owns the power grid and the silicon truly owns the future. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. Please remember to like and subscribe to the channel on Apple to support independent tech journalism. Until next time, keep analyzing the flow of capital and stay sharp.
That concludes our weekly forensic briefing for June 28th, 2026. The strategic signal for this week is the end of globalized technology. The era of an open, borderless tech sector has been entirely dismantled. When the U.S. government dictates the deployment schedule of American AI, when China builds the world's fastest supercomputer by completely sidestepping NVIDIA GPUs, And when Washington threatens 100% tariffs over digital software taxes, technology is no longer a consumer product. It is a sovereign weapon. Executives must realize that building an enterprise around the assumption of free-flowing global components or ungated cloud models is a terminal risk. The future belongs to organizations that secure localized compute and insulate their supply chains from geopolitical volatility. If you want to own your infrastructure instead of being managed by it, check the show notes for the AI Executive Toolkit. As a special asset for our global network, we have provided deep discount codes for Google Workspace and our premium AI and machine learning tutor Pro apps. You can claim those assets directly through the links in the show notes below. Subscribe to the DJAMGAMIND channel on Apple Podcasts to always listen completely ads-free. I am Anna. Stay sharp and keep unraveling the future.